Ladies and gentlemen, ATDF everything in that shelf presentation. You're now rocking with TDF everything. Spoiled rotten.
Spoiler alert.
Welcome and welcome back, everybody.
Hey.
It's me, Daniel,
And this is Ban.
on Spoiled Rotten.
On that shelf.
Boom. Well, we did seasons 1 and 2 last week, so it makes sense that we would do season 3 this week. We are revisiting The Boys season 3, a season I really enjoy.
Yeah.
Just gonna say that up front. I thought that it explored the people it needed to explore and scaled up the way it needed to scale up.
Yeah. Everyone got to be doing some really, really good things. I have some very interesting and good things to say about MM. Like I think we're gonna have the same opinion about Butcher at the end of the day. Maybe even hate him even a little bit more because of this season.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say this rewatch, I just kind of tuned out during the Butcher stuff, so I probably won't be as energetic about him because I'm just like, yeah, I just don't like him. Nothing has changed.
That's basically what it is. We're just gonna be like, yeah, we don't like him even more because of what he does in this season.
But yeah, the introduction of Soldier Boy, and I think what works for me is the proper exploration of Victoria Newman, because I find her to be. Let's get this out of the way. Like, we hinted at stuff about Anthony Starr last time. It's looking more and more like it's true, but they're all allegations right now.
Right.
I mean, he did like people making fun of a black person cosplaying as Starlight. So that's not alleged. Like, that's just a thing that did happen.
Yeah, there's evidence on that.
So I'll say this. It is harder and harder to find shows, films, music that you can like that isn't tainted by someone's actions. So much like when we talked about The Flash or Ant-Man Quantumania, this is not like an endorsement of someone as a person. I can't help if they are playing an interesting character. I'm just gonna put it at that.
Yeah, it's very, very true. I mean, we've had to deal with these awkward situations, all that kind of stuff. And I want to be clear to the audience, at least for me, and I'm speaking for myself here, I'm not expecting perfection out of anyone. We're all human beings. We all have the capacity to make mistakes. We're all terrible. We all come from different backgrounds. I get that, right? It's just the idea of when you are actually confronted with something, how is that person themselves and the people around them actually handling that?
Yeah. But yeah, I like Ben, I don't expect perfection. I just sympathize with people that have to deal with this situation. Whether it's people that aren't on camera that are like, oh, are they going to take our show away from us because this guy's like this? Or people that have to be with him day to day and feel uncomfortable. That's the upsetting part. Not like, oh no, he ruined a show I like. All right, let's talk about the season, and hopefully people didn't skip over that so that they know that if we say anything good about Homelander, it's not.
It's the product only.
Yeah.
Product of the performance. Yeah.
Yeah. So, as I said, I'm a big fan of Victoria Newman. One, like, obviously the actress who plays Victoria Newman and the actor who plays Huey, they're in a relationship, but in that first scene they have together where she's like, hey, can I have a bite of your bagel? I'm like, I kind of want these guys to get together. And then I was like, oh, they did. In real, I just find that chemistry. I'm like, I'm into this way more than I'm into him and Starlight. Again, I like how his presence in Starlight's life enhances decisions she has to make and just makes her a more interesting character. But if we're just shipping people, I'm like, yeah, man, like I really like Victoria Newman and Huey together.
Yeah. They have a lot of fun in the first few episodes before he finds out the thing.
Yeah, but yeah, the idea that obviously in season 2 they confirmed she's the one that popped heads in season 2, but in season 3 you're like, oh shit, she's got her own soup task force, and Huey works directly with her and doesn't know, and that guy comes to the office calling her Nadia, and that's what Huey tries to take care of it, but then he ends up seeing her pop someone's head, or that guy's head in particular, and that's a lot to take in. Like, oh my god, I can't share this person. I can't trust this person at all.
Yeah, especially because especially where we left, where Huey was left in the previous season, how he's like, hey, I'm gonna get away from Butcher's stuff right now, try to do this the proper way as opposed to his vigilante justice and all that kind of stuff. For him to be like, ah, crap, I'm right back at square one. Like, I'm just doing the same shit I was, and he has a bit of a breakdown because of that in this season, I think.
It is, I mean, realistically, he was accomplishing more under her, though. Like,
100%.
It was quite clear. Even Butcher had to like agree, like, oh, I guess we are getting shit done. Like, the way he could be like, hey, Butcher, you're gonna go after the shrinking guy, but you can't torture him. I mean, obviously, Butcher doesn't listen completely, but after the fact, he's like, I mean, yeah, we're getting shit done.
Yeah,
I'm not getting what I want to get done, but we are making a difference. But yeah, it was still, I'm working for someone that I can't trust and is genuinely dangerous.
Yep. Yeah.
Which is a bummer for him. But yeah, and where is Starlight at this? Has she kind of just like, no, she's still on the team at this point at the beginning of the season, because that's where they're like, you can see Homelander's trying to do stuff with Maeve, like to make it like, oh, we're back together, but at one of the premieres, he basically just like, yeah, I'm with Starlight. We're the new couple.
Yeah.
Well, no, it wasn't a premiere. It was rehearsal for his birthday.
That and the reality show.
Yes.
Right? The reality show where they're getting that boy band guy.
What's his name? Drummer Boy? Or no, yeah, Drummer Boy.
It was a Drummer Boy?
Yeah. Or her ex, Starlight's ex is.
Yeah.
I was really like, where are they going with this? Because he seems like such a nice person.
Yeah. And
I should have seen it coming, but I was just like I feel like they're writing themselves into a corner, because it does feel like she should be with Drummer Boy. No, I mean, if she was like, if you are going down the path of she wants to be in a relationship, which it seems like she does, then like Huey's clearly the bad choice, because he is not honest with her and seems to kind of disrespect some of her wishes.
A lot of her wishes.
Yeah. So, and then you've got someone who knows her and they can relate to each other a bit better, because obviously this season, another thing that comes out, which I don't even truly blame Huey for feeling, but obviously he could have expressed it better, which is the power imbalance isn't working for him. The idea that he feels at every level of that relationship, Starlight needs to come in and save him. If it's talking to someone, she needs to save him. If it's opening a jar, she needs to save him. And then they live in a world of superheroes. She needs to save him.
Yep. And it's interesting to see how that develops throughout the rest of the season, because of course, like, they actually do address it, and I'm glad that they do. And it's just the male insecurity aspect of Huey is not something that I foresaw in this season, but it makes total sense that he would, especially because he's like, oh, the one thing that he was getting ahead with Victoria Newman and her stuff, is just like, oh crap. So now he's just like, oh, I can't even make a good choice for myself. So of course his insecurity kind of overflows at that point, and he's like, well, what can I do? And he kind of goes to Butcher's side. And,
Butcher and Huey take Temp V, not Compound V. Yeah,
Temp V, which is the new. And I do like, okay, Giancarlo is so effective as the CEO here that he's like, hey, we're a pharmaceutical company. We're making this and we're going to sell this to the military. I'm like, what a brilliant businessman. Like, what a brilliant genius, diabolical, evil kind of guy to create
Victoria
something.
Gets him at the end.
Yeah. And then
he didn't see that coming.
He did not see that coming. That's wild. That was wild.
I was really hoping I know we're jumping around a lot, but yeah, like the what's his name? Stan Edgar
Mhm.
character. He's like last season, like season 2. He's truly like, I don't care what's going on here. I'm in charge. I know what I'm doing. I'm not afraid of Homelander. And
Mhm.
he's constantly like, he makes Starlight co-captain. Like, just consistently making Homelander aware that he is not in control.
Yep.
And what he didn't count on was his surrogate daughter, Victoria Newman, who he adopted. Was, or I guess he didn't directly adopt. There was some kind of, still can't adopt a super, but I will be your father figure.
Yeah.
She turned him in as in opposition to him because he wanted to give Homelander another slap on the wrist and get him sent up, but
Mhm.
she switched it on him at the last second.
Yeah. Very public too. Like at a
Oh
press
yeah, like
conference
at a
with it.
press conference, she was like, "Oh no,
Wow.
Stan Edgar is corrupt. We need to get him out of Vought," and he goes
Yeah.
to jail. And I was thinking, no, I can't speak for everyone. I
Mhm.
was thinking like, oh, he's gonna say something like "good job" or something withering to her to make her feel bad, and he was just like, "Why?" And I was like, "Oh shit, you didn't know? No,
Yeah.
you don't have anything for this. You're just
Yeah.
upset."
It's like you were vulnerable once and it cost you, buddy. Like it really did. It's wild to me how diabolical Victoria Newman is in this. Like I'm so glad she's a regular on the show right now because like the way she's operating, especially where we get to with her and the end of the season, I'm like, wow, great stuff. Great
Yeah,
stuff.
I mean, I don't know about diabolical. I'll say that. I think that's somehow flattening what's actually happening by calling her diabolical. I think
Interesting.
she is like most characters in the show. You're seeing the things that have been stacked up against these characters, and what do they do with that?
Mhm.
And I think she's obviously not all good because she's not using what she can do to help others. She's just trying to help herself. But
Mhm.
I do think it's more out of survival and less out of harm to other people. Um, because obviously she gives up her father, which is one big thing. But I
Mhm.
do feel like her thing is like, how do I protect my daughter? This is what I'm doing.
Right.
And so I'm not saying she's a good guy. I'm just saying like I don't know if it's diabolical. Like
Mhm.
there are many other instances of that in the show.
That's true. That's true. In a show where pretty much everyone is shitty, it's like who's the
Yeah, like
shittiest is kind of being like, what?
you're watching everyone has an excuse to be shitty. But what are they?
Yeah.
Yeah, like you see Starlight, she does shitty things. Like I think it's season 2 where she just uses her friend, quote unquote, to get her the compound V so she can plant it and stuff.
Yep.
And he's like, "But what are you doing?" And she's like, "You're nothing to me." And I'm like, and that's what I was trying to talk about like last episode, but I
Mhm.
was so jumbled. But that the show is showing you like you're not going to win if you try to do capitalism back at capitalism. Like you will just be sucked up into it. And I think that I saw a creator that I respect, so I'm not going to say she doesn't understand it, but it's Jay Stoobs on TikTok. I won't say she doesn't understand, but I think in an effort to have a witty thing to say, she said, well, the show is pretty on the nose and surface level because it's just saying, oh, there's just secret people behind the scenes doing things. And I'm like, that's, I don't think that's the case at all. I think
Mhm.
this show is thoroughly exploring the concept of capitalism consuming and destroying whatever it touches.
Mhm.
That is a simple thing to say out loud, but it is not a simple thing to live out and actually display. So
Mhm.
I don't think it was a fair assessment to say it's on the nose and surface level because I don't think the idea isn't just, oh, there's secret people behind the scenes.
Mhm.
That's like the conspiracy theory people thing that tries to create individuals to blame instead of looking at the actual system that is
Yeah.
ruining things.
Yeah. It's like the Wizard of Oz. It's not
Yeah,
that
it's
easy.
not the wizard. Like it's
Yeah.
like yeah. So I would say I'm not trying to like mansplain to her. I'm sure she on some level understands that, and maybe just because we all do it, we're recording these things and it comes out, you keep moving
Mhm.
on. but I did think that yeah, it's doing a lot more work than that, and it's each character, and that's why on the first episode we did about the boys, I made a point of being like, I don't need the team, the boys, because anything they're doing that's exploring these things is being done to me better with just following the corporate side of VOD and the soup side of VOD. Then you get then you get the humans, and you get the super powered people.
Yeah, in this season, like when we recorded that episode last time, that was front in mind in me, and I was thinking, I'm like, oh man, yeah, you're really right about that. Like, really, really right about that. I'm especially stuff with Butcher. I'm like, yeah, he's from we don't need him and all that kind of stuff. continues to be the best part of that group, along with Kimiko. And Frenchie's kind of codependency, I'm over it, 100% over it.
Also, if we did talk about Anthony Starr at the beginning of the episode, the actor for Frenchie is a full-on Zionist IDF soldier who was saying some wild shit when last October. So I didn't say that up front last time, but just the more I've seen and the actual footage I've seen of him, I'm like, yeah, I'm out on the actor and the character. Like, I didn't like the character already, but I'm also like, and I don't like the actor. And I'm not saying I don't like him because he's Jewish or from Israel. I'm saying I'm acknowledging there are many Jewish people I know and people from Israel that can acknowledge this is bad. We shouldn't be supporting this. So yeah, it's more I don't like that he chose to be like, oh, my country is under attack, and then use just false information to make it look worse than it was. Yeah, that using that victimization stance is never really good. I 100% agree, and I want to double down on that too. It's like you being Zionist Jew is a circumstance of birth. That's not one's choice, right? No, sorry. I want to make sure you don't get caught up here too.
Sure.
Zionism does not attach itself. It's not inherent to being Jewish. It's not inherent to being Israeli. There are Christian Zionists. So I don't want to, because I felt you were going down a road there of like you actively opt into being a Zionist.
Yes, that's what I'm getting at. Yeah, that's what I'm getting at. You could, you're right. My wording is always, and my wording's never really the best because English is my second language, which is fine. But like the idea of you could be born Jewish but not support what's going on right now. That is fundamentally it. And for him to play that position and all that, not great. Don't love that. Don't love that at all.
And as Canadians, we can be like, we are upset that our government is also aiding this, and I'm sure Americans that. So it's not about like that one country sucks as a whole, because there would definitely be citizens in that country that are critical of their government.
Yeah, for sure.
Again, not individuals, like a system that is doing this. And so anyway, I just wanted to say, you were saying you were out on Frenchie's codependency and stuff, and I'm glad you got there too. But I wanted to let you continue your thought on that. I kind of derailed that.
No, that's okay. Because and I always appreciate you clarifying the things, because you and I very much have a very parallel track of thinking when it comes to these kind of things, and I do know that because of multiple variables in my life that I'm not able to fully express myself properly sometimes. So I always appreciate when you're like, hey, did you mean this? And I'm like, yes, that's exactly what I meant. Thank you so much for finding the words for me. So yeah, that's really, really cool. Thank you. But yeah, going back to, the whole idea of what's going on in this season. It's such a good season because it is, you're right, fully exploring even more of the effects of capitalism and all that kind of stuff, and how you can't fight fire with fire, aka capitalism with capitalism. You just get more capitalism at the end of the day.
Yeah, the idea would be, there is a character that flat out just says it, like, you just have to envision a different way of living, like, and that it's hard. Like, I can't fully. I know on paper what the other thing is. Like, you kind of, if you're willing to kind of delve into socialism and end up in communism and something like that, but it's one of those things where a lot of people, and I don't blame people for this, can't see anything other than, oh, but you just have to do capitalism right. Like, it's just because greedy people are doing capitalism now, which is not the case. And I feel like, again, I won't say that creator's name again because I don't really want it to be about bashing her. I think
Sure.
she just said something and tried to get it off quickly.
Sure.
But to my point, it isn't about just trying to do it the right way, because capitalism works exactly the way it's supposed to. It is part and parcel of white supremacy. It is part and parcel of subjugating people. That is that if you're doing capitalism right, that's what's happening. People are being subjugated. People are being squashed. And so when you see a objectively good, as in good guy character like Starlight, completely like leave her, at least someone she'd known for quite some time, someone who was willing to help her, out to dry the way she does, it's because she's like, oh shit, yeah, like I guess I'm just doing capitalism at capitalism. Like I'm just trying to get ahead here. And you see all the characters at some point not realize, but you as an audience member should be able to realize, oh yeah, like even they're getting caught up in these traps. Like they think they can do it better, but they're going to just keep getting caught up in these traps and doing it the same way, because it isn't an individual issue. It is the systemic issue.
Absolutely. It's an oppressive system in general, right? It's a tool of oppression. And that's what I really love, the fact that in the beginning of the season, I forget which episode this was, but Starlight ultimately goes like, hey, I need to be, and I think it's to Drummer Boy, the idea of like, oh yeah, if I'm not here, someone else worse is going to take my place, which is always the argument. It seems like with those capitalistic kind of things, like, oh, I'm going to do it better than them. I'm going to play their game, get into their system, change the CEO world, and I will be a tool. I'm like, no, you don't, because throughout the whole thing, and you see this time and time again, and this is, I was one of those people. The idea of like, I will do this better than them. I will play their game, and then I will make the change. I'm like, no, if you're playing their game, the game plays you.
They won.
They've won already. It's just like the only way. And I'm so glad that Starlight gets to this by the end of the season. It's like, no, I'm out. I'm just out. I quit. And I'm like, yeah, there you go. That's how you don't play and actually fight the system.
And like you, I did. I was the same way. Like I was like, oh yeah, you just got to have like the good person do this. And it is a journey to try and unlearn the stuff that's like drilled into your head from living in Western part of I'll just say Western part of the world. You just, there's so much of it that's just drilled into you to think that there's no other way. And it is why I understand people who criticize Amazon for putting a show out like this, because they are they are VOT. And I'm like, yes, but I think that in a world where, at least when I was growing up, saying something like when we watched Quantum Mania and Michael Douglas's character was like, I don't know, I think it's I know this is a hot topic, but we could learn from these socialist ants. Like that would have been considered like he's the bad guy if he had said that in a movie when I was growing up. Like the 100%. Idea that you can watch the good guys acknowledge that you should be more communal and less individual, and obviously it's funnier because it's coming from Michael Douglas, the face of Wall Street, like money, greed is good and stuff. But like I am willing to have the cognitive dissonance then to be like, sure, it's coming from Amazon, but the message is still important. And I understand that they also think like, what are you going to do about it? Like, we're going to put this right in your face and you're still going to try and be a capitalist. But I do think that it could connect the way it has connected with me with someone younger who will then feel less weird about having that ideology.
I mean, I do certainly believe that is what is happening in our society, is that people are being like, yeah, this is not working anymore. We're experiencing late stage capitalism. Everything's messed up. I know certainly the Gen Zers are like, why even try this? Like, why do this? We're never going to own property. We're never going to do this. And all that kind of stuff. The game's rigged against everyone now and all that kind of stuff. And, there is a massive push towards this, especially with other variables like AI threatening the kind of livelihood that we do live in and all that kind of stuff, and workforce and economic things that I can't speak to because I'm going to sound like an idiot. But only understand at the surface level, right? It is, we from a political side of things, I've seen a lot of these discussions being brought up by people that maybe wouldn't have been the best vehicle of it. And I'm talking about like Andrew Yang and the American elections of like universal basic income and all that kind of stuff. And then the UBI kind of experiment that was going on in Ontario that Dougie kind of squashed and ruined for the rest of the world because the world was watching the results of what that would have done.
Hmm.
And it's just a challenge because these people, oppressive capitalistic people, and capitalism itself will always squash out these kind of thinkings because everyone's attached to the idea of socialism bad
Yeah.
because this is what we believe socialism is. And I'm like, that's not real socialism. That's corruption being disguised as socialism. So how
Yeah.
do we do this? But yeah, this season's a great exploration of that in
Yeah.
many
I
capacities.
feel like the show in general, but I think that maybe that's what I was trying to say on our episode
Mhm.
last time, that you keep building on things. And I think that, yeah, season 3, you kind of hit the groove of like what they're getting at in terms of how they approach what capitalism can do.
Yep.
And yeah, so yeah, so basically, we're back to this reality show where you see um, that Vought only wants diversity because they need the points. So it's like,
Yeah,
oh
it's
yeah, like here's a
profitable
woman
and all
with a
that.
hijab, or here's a here, or maybe no, it's not a hijab. But I shouldn't say that. Maybe I'm wrong about that.
She is a Muslim hero, like
Yes,
that.
yes.
Yeah,
But I don't remember what she's wearing specifically. I think I'm wrong by calling it a
it's.
hijab.
I don't think it's a job because
Yeah,
it is a costume, but it is certainly fulfilling all those Muslim needs of how one.
visually you get
Yeah,
what is going on there. There's
absolutely.
no ambiguity as to what she represents to Vought
Yeah.
with her costume.
Mhm.
There's a black woman, and then there's the Latino guy, drummer boy, who
Mhm.
was uh, Starlight's ex,
Mhm.
and basically, as I was saying, like I was like, I mean, he is a good person, but he could also just be a nice guy, quote unquote, like that's trying to do that to get to Starlight. I was just like, I don't know where they're going with this, but basically, Homelander is like, you think you have one over on me because Stan Edgar is in your corner, but
Mhm.
I will ruin anyone who loves you. Like I can't touch you right now, but I can get other people.
Yeah.
And she keeps, I think rightfully so, pushing the power that she has over
Mhm.
him, and he kills Drummer Boy in a very aggressive, violent way,
Yeah.
off screen, but you see the aftermath of it.
Yeah.
And he's like, and just remember next time it's Huey.
Yeah.
So just and brings back the Deep, or I think he like
He does bring
entertains,
that deep. Yeah.
because A Train was allowed to come back, and
Yeah.
we were talking about the whole lack of awareness of self, where he's like, I'm gonna wear an
Mhm.
African costume because that's me, and his family's like, that looks like shit. This is embarrassing. You're embarrassing. You don't care about this. And he says, I'm Michael Jordan, not Malcolm X. But his brother's just like, yuck. Like, come on, man. um,
Mhm.
but yeah, so Homelander gets to bring back the Deep, obviously understanding what that would do to Starlight.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, so yeah, he's got the power plays, and we talked about it off mic, but I feel like this season he also shows like I will fuck people up as well.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, and one of the biggest, this is the best real life example of that. Like you, even though you officially have the power of the number one spot, like Starlight does in this situation, like, hey, here's everything contractually you have on paper. You can't do what you want to do because the best real life example of this is look at how China's market is affecting censorship and like writing stuff in the North American movie market and all that kind of stuff, right? The second in control or the second always almost has more, if not as much power as the first in the ranking kind of system because and this is true in a lot of different things but especially in relationships the person that cares the least has the most power
mhm,
and that is if you take a look at the real world example if you want a blockbuster movie to do well you gotta make sure that it complies with Chinese censorship laws
mhm.
right which is and even advertising laws and all that kind of stuff which is messed up because when you look at when they try to bring Star Wars into China, the Chinese movie markets and all that kind of stuff, the amount of like crap that they do, like they remove like Finn from all the
posters,
John
yeah.
Boyega from the posters and all that kind of stuff because China's very anti-black racist, and very like homophobic and all these kind of things. Like those things are being done in North America, but they're being changed fundamentally at the core of it because of all of this. So it's
Yeah,
the
and
fact that Homelander is like, hey, I don't have technical power contractually, but I'm going to make your life a living hell if you try to go against what I do. And that's such a good representation of that because
yeah.
that's exactly what China would do.
Oh,
They're
China
like, all
also,
right,
you also, not China. I don't know if China asked for this, but I know like Iron Man 3, one of the Transformers, like they just have extra scenes
yes,
to like appease Chinese audiences. Like that America
absolutely,
doesn't do that for anywhere else. It's like, oh no, like we
100%.
just film straight up scenes for Chinese audiences
Yep,
that are not
absolutely.
available elsewhere.
Yep. Yep. So it's just
Um,
like you could be number one, but you're always listening to your number two more than you're listening to anyone else. Like that's
well, I
the
mean, I
biggest thing.
think the main point that's being made is that's why I don't know if it fully connects to the Homelander
Hmm.
Starlight thing. Is obviously I look at this as capitalist interests, and the
Hmm.
idea that's been there since day one in the boys is nothing's going to happen unless it can make them money. So
Yes.
that real life example you gave is like, yeah, people complain that there's women leading movies, but that's because Disney knows they'll make money. They don't give a
Yep.
shit otherwise. And in
100%.
China, like if China's happy that this Chinese star is in Iron Man 3, that's because Marvel was like, yeah, because we're gonna get money off of that. We don't actually care about you guys like that. We care about the money we're gonna make, and
Yeah.
you have
100%.
that power over us. But I do like, yeah. So I do think that it's this this idea that, especially in the show, nothing good around representation or doing the right thing is happening under VOT unless they're like, we did the math, this is what the money we're going to make, or this is the improvement in audience engagement we'll get.
Yep. Yep, and that was done in season two with like
And one.
two and one with Homelander as well. Like the in season two, I'm thinking like that scene where you famously get that soundbite of like Ashley, look at me,
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing, where he just like, oh, this person's like deaf and blind or whatever, like a disabled person that's testing really well amongst the millennials is how Ashley puts it, and then he just
He's like, what
squashes his
happens if I
head.
do this? No, he
Yeah,
does the sound wave thing. He's like, what if I just do this to you though?
yeah,
And it's like, oh yeah, you've ruined his life.
yeah,
Well, he's
and it's
dead, but like you like, yeah, his problem was,
mhm,
I don't want to be diverse. I am. It's obviously we're talking about season 2 again, but
mhm,
it's before he's even working with Stormfront, playing into the Ubermensch thing of like, no, it's not diverse. No,
mhm,
we aren't just like them. We
mhm.
are special. We are different.
Yeah, and I think like it is somewhere. I think Newman brings it up in this is like because the information that like superheroes aren't born, they're created by Vought with Compound V. They're now looking at the race is like 95% of the superheroes are white, and it's just like, oh yeah, if it's by design, then that's by design too. It's like
Mm-hmm.
you're giving all the power to the white people and that pass too, all that kind of stuff. So it's wild, the stuff that's being brought up here, and then at the same time it's like, oh, Newman, you're not white and you're benefiting from this situation, so you
Uh,
align with the values.
well, I don't know how much you've seen of season 4, but
None,
okay.
zero.
I think that what's important about a character, I'll just speak to season 3 examples, is she's not showing that she is a superhero. You can say that that's out of self-preservation, but also if we're going along with what you're saying, like she doesn't fit the uniform of who should have the powers and
Yep.
probably knows it, so she's not showing that she has those powers.
Yep.
It's less benefiting than like obviously that's what I like about her character is that she will work within whatever parameters she's given to make a situation work for her,
Yeah.
but she is limited in the sense that like she can't do what Homelander does. Like she couldn't actively
Mhm.
I remember the first time I watched season 2, I didn't know she was the head popper until they just flat out showed you at the end where she pops the guy's head.
Yeah.
from outside
It was such
what
a
I-
good reveal.
what I assume is the Scientology and like analog. Like she pops that guy's head, and then you go outside and see they have to make it that her eyes do something, because then you're like, oh, she used a power. But I genuinely was like, no, she was screaming during the thing. Like I thought she played that well the first time. Now this
Yes.
time I'm like, oh, she's just acting. Like the character's acting, not the actor is acting.
Mhm.
But the first time I was genuinely like, yeah, like who's doing this? Wow, okay, like this is interesting.
Yeah, because at first I was like, "Oh, okay, are they gonna put it on the person that in season 2 because of the whole like uh the facility where Shawn Ashmore is looking after and all that kind of stuff?" Is like, or are they gonna say like she's in the room right now? Like I'm scanning the whole room for her, and then it's just like, oh, the reveal. I'm like, whoa, that was a good one because during the head popping scene, obviously her eyes didn't do anything,
Yeah.
and then they made it afterwards, which I'm like, okay, sure, but at the end of the day, I'm like, oh, this is good. This is good writing. I like it a lot.
It's convenient writing. I'll give them that.
Yeah.
Because, as you said,
Yeah.
like there was such a delay on that eye thing that you would have seen it, but it doesn't matter. It's
Yeah.
I like that character a lot. I think she's one of my favorite characters.
Yes.
And again, I'm
Yes.
not saying that because I think like, wow, that's how you should operate in life. I'm just saying we're watching a piece of art. I enjoy how they are exploring this character.
Mhm, mhm.
But yeah, so she's kind of out there, and for a lot of the show, it's unfortunate because it means that he can't have a lot more scenes with Victoria Newman because he's trying to avoid her for basically the rest of the season. But I'm like,
Mhm.
but they're so fun together. I really
Yeah,
really
they
want to see
are.
them back together.
There
But
in that first episode, there is a chemistry on screen that's really
and
good.
so it was just funny. I'm like, oh, they are dating. Good. I'm glad this
Yeah.
chemistry didn't go to waste.
Yeah.
But because yeah, I think there is the scene where Victoria Newman basically says to Starlight that she knows by going like, "Oh, good, I'm glad he's not avoiding me because he thinks I'm gonna pop his head." And I was like,
Such a power move.
"Yeah,
Love
like
that.
she is another the capitalism thing of like she can afford to be nice, like kind of when we were talking about like Marvel, Disney doing
Mhm.
gestures like, oh, like let's do another Black Panther movie. Obviously, it made them a lot of money, so they're gonna do it. But like, let's
Yeah.
let the director grieve and do what he wants to do for the second
Mhm.
movie. For the most part, like obviously, there's stuff that's shoved in there, but
Yeah.
like for the most part, they let him do 2 movies that were very personal to him.
Mhm.
They can afford to do that because like he doesn't really have any power over that. He's not a threat, right? And
Mhm.
Victoria Newman walks around knowing like I'll just pop your head if anything. So not really. No one is truly a threat to me. Like I'm still, I know I get she needs Homelander so she doesn't kill him because yes, he tries to choke her out at one point. Butcher, I think, tries to do it. Like she lets people do these things because she's like, don't want to kill you, but also I'm not that scared. If it really came
Mhm.
down to it, I'd kill you like I killed my friend in the alleyway.
Yeah.
Like that's just what's gonna happen. I'm not actually gonna get killed by you. So
That's true.
she can be a lot more pleasant and like fun to be around while still getting what she needs out of a situation.
Yeah. And it's funny because I'll bring this up like from like again how the whole thing that I was saying about how the number 2 is actually the one in charge. In a lot of like dom sub kink relationships, the dom isn't really the one in charge. It's the sub
Well, they
that's
gotta
like,
do what the
here's,
sub wants.
yeah, it's like, here's what my parameters are, stay within them. So if
Mhm.
you hear that, who's in charge really? Is it the dom or the sub? It's the sub. It's so cool. And you know, it's really funny because of course the show is so kinky. You know, but I will say like the Hero Gasm episode was so hyped up to me, and I was just like, man, I feel like this is just old news to me at this point, based on what the show's
Oh, I
was
think they're
doing.
talking about the fact that you're gonna watch Huey, Soldier Boy, and Butcher actually fight Homelander, which I
Mhm.
think delivered. I don't
Yes.
think it's actually about the sexual stuff.
No, no, that's so what I mean by that was I thought it was about the sexual stuff. I thought
Oh,
it was gonna
okay.
be super messed up, and I'm like, no, the clear thing that's gonna take me by like shock here is that fight, like you're talking about. Like, holy
Yeah,
crap, that fight was good.
Yeah, that's what I don't. I mean, I don't know where these writers' heads are at, but I would say that they would put something out there like, "Hey, we're doing a Hero Gasm episode," because everyone talks about that from the comics. But
Yep.
they seem to be smart enough to understand that like nothing we put on screen is going to be better than what you filled in the gaps with while you were reading that. Like,
True.
yes, it's very visual already, so there's less opportunity for people to do what they do with just non-graphic novels, like novels,
Mhm.
just pure text, to be able to read and then imagine. But you still can fill in some gaps and have a little bit more of your imagination work when it's comic. And I think they were like, no, we're gonna give you a fight that you probably didn't think you were gonna get.
Yeah.
And then I for one was thoroughly enthusiastic about that fight. Like,
Yeah.
I like the Stormfront fight from last season, but like the placement of it, because it wasn't the last episode like the Stormfront fight, and who was involved, I was just like, yeah, like I'm into this. And as I told you off mic, I was kind of like, I mean, I kind of want Homelander to win. Like, he's like the 3 against 1, and he's holding his own. Like, I kind of like, if you're telling me this guy's the big bad, he's got to get out of this, I think.
Yeah. I agree. It was so good. And the idea of like the utilization of Soldier Boy throughout this whole season has been so bloody interesting in Soldier
Yeah,
Boy
we haven't
himself.
talked about Soldier Boy at all.
Not at all, but like Soldier Boy is just like clearly racist, clearly a product of his time and all that kind of stuff, and just being like, hey, we have a weapon and our weapon is this, and then the whole idea is like, can you handle this weapon? Clearly they can't.
No,
But
because
it's
they're trying to capitalism. In
Yes!
this sense, it's like, oh, we'll just use a superhero to fight this superhero.
yeah.
What's wrong with the first superhero? He's like racist. He wants to euthanize. Like, he just wants to like cleanse the world. Oh, I guess this guy does too. I guess we should
Yeah.
have thought of that. I guess we shouldn't be aligned with this.
Mhm.
Obviously, with Soldier Boy comes a lot more background for Mallory. Grace Mallory, even Stan Edgar.
Yeah.
The little ways that he showed his power moves even back then by eating almonds with young Black Noir.
Yeah.
Like, I like how Black Noir doesn't get that that's on purpose. He's like, hey, can you stop eating those around me? And it's like, no, obviously he can't, because he's gonna now you can't do anything to him.
Yeah. He's
But
just
yeah,
gonna spit this in your face.
yeah, like this is what I was obviously didn't want to hint at when we talked about Black Noir last time, is that how truly messed up his life is because
Yeah.
of Soldier Boy. And I love that he like hears, oh, Soldier Boy's alive, I'm fucking out. Like, I'm taking my chip out. He can't be able to find me. And then it is this sad thing. I guess now I do have to praise the actual actor. I appreciated how Anthony Starr played that moment where he was like, we haven't said it already, but Soldier Boy is Homelander's father.
Mhm.
They used his sperm to create Homelander in a tube. When he asked Noir, who for the whole show he's been like, I can trust Noir. If I can't trust anyone, I can trust Noir.
Mhm.
And he's like, wait, so you knew that he was my dad, right? And Noir begrudgingly is like, yep. And everything he plays, I think, is like why, unfortunately, he's being protected. You're like, he knew exactly how to play that moment. It's not full on rage. You get to see him be betrayed. You get to see him be like, what are my options? And then you see him be like, you're dying, and I'm sad about it, but you're gonna die now.
Mhm. Mhm.
And he did it all without talking. He didn't like. It's just a lot of face work, but he got a lot done in a little bit of like hearing the news and then making the choice to kill the only person he could trust.
It's his Homelander unhinged throughout this whole season is just such a wild thing to see how it has the impact on not only the group of the seven, but like through society itself,
Mhm.
right? Looking at MM, his daughter, and that whole co-parenting situation, how the stepfather's like it's nuts.
I
It's just
hate
like
that
you took him
stepfather so
to
bad.
oh god, I hate him so bad. And it's just like the idea of like basically like, oh, I brought him to a Homelander rally. He's like, I don't see what's wrong with this. I'm like, are you Homeland like MM's
I love
making
how
a
MM didn't even go for that guy's racist. He went for
No.
Soldier Boy's looking for him. So you just put her in a situation where she could die if those two had to face off.
Yeah, he put just put common sense stuff, and this is like I know MM's character has to be like, all right, well, I can't appeal to this because obviously he's going to get defensive. So let's appeal to something that is at least a common ground, is our daughter's safety. And it's just like that complexity within MM's character is, to me, just so good. Like the only good part of the boys themselves is MM, because he's the more grounding center to be like, hey, Butcher, the whole point of us doing this is so that there are no soups. You can't become a soup and then do this. Like, what we're saying is like, hey, you can't use capitalism to be capitalism, which is what Butcher tries to do the entire season, right? It's wild.
I guess also Soldier Boy killed his family, so
Yeah.
I like that there's a moment where he says, "How come I have to give up what I want, but Butcher doesn't have to give up what I want?" And you're again looking at the difference between the white man who doesn't feel the need to assess how this will affect everyone else,
Yep.
versus the black person who historically we are asked to, if not think about everyone else, you know, do the respectability politics and not
Yep.
look and not make a scene.
It's 100% correct. Like when he calls out Butcher in that situation, I'm like, yeah, he's got a very valid point here. It's like, why do you get revenge and he doesn't? Like, yeah, I get it. Homelander did some horrible things to Beck. MM lost his entire family. Like, what the hell? That's insane to me for Soldier Boy and all this kind of stuff, and the trauma that he's been living with, and how well, like, put together he is ultimately at that point. It's that nuance of like people of color versus white people and how they get to act and all that kind of stuff. It's so good. It's so good because everyone addresses it with Butcher, and Butcher's like, I don't care. I don't care. Which is why I'm like, yeah, fuck Butcher. Shit.
Just not a character for me. So that's going on. I don't even remember what's going on with Kimiko in this season. I like.
Kimiko,
she loses her powers
power.
because that's what Soldier Boy does. He when he can light up. I'm assuming this isn't an initial power of his. I think this is what happened when they were testing on him.
Yes.
So basically,
the
what Soldier
radiation aspect of everything.
Soldier Boy was too powerful, and the government was like, "We need to take him out." And Black Noir specifically, because you see him beat the brains literally out of Black Noir at one point for wanting to be Axel Foley in Beverly Hills Cop. He takes on the responsibility of whatever liaising needs to happen to get Soldier Boy taken out. The team does in general, but it was like Black Noir's point person on it. And so that's why he knows, like, oh, that shit, he's back. All right, well, I need to get out of here because he's gonna piece that together pretty quickly. So the government gets rid of him. Obviously, it's supposed to be a Captain America, Winter Soldier play, like twofer there. And yeah, you just watch them do shit like unload guns into his mouth and laser him and stuff, and they're like, oh yeah, he's really indestructible. So I think they just added something to him where he explodes and then superheroes lose their powers. And when they're initially getting him out of the facility, Kimiko loses her powers. But I think she starts to be able to speak.
Yes, after she loses her
the
powers.
first episode, you see that she sings, like, and you get to see, and I like the nice
It's
little
a dream
touch where,
sequence,
like,
though.
yeah, no, I know, but they're showing that she's got
this actor can
ambitions.
speak English, and wants to do those things. For sure.
And then yes, when she loses her power, but I do like they're looking for one of the not leads, but one of the people on the team that got rid of Soldier Boy because they know he's coming for her, and they're at the park and she has her nails done, and then that's when, like, because of something she does, the mascot blows up and it again bloodies her hands, and she's just like, I just can't get this right. And I we talked about it last episode, but just this idea that she has an aesthetic she's going for and it's constantly being taken away from her.
Yeah, you can't. And from a philosophical standpoint, or from a psychological standpoint, I kind of interpreted that as like, hey, you can't ever escape your trauma without actually confronting it.
Yeah.
And it keeps following you around, which is, kind of what Soldier Boy is doing throughout this whole season, too. It's like, hey, he's constantly trying to get high, trying to do whatever, and like to control his PTSD, which is
I love
actually,
that he said that. And he's
yeah,
like, I'm not shell shocked. Fucking. He's like, so you do know what he's saying.
yeah.
You have your own words for it, but you know exactly what he's saying.
Exactly, exactly. It's like it's a product of the time. It's like, oh, it's so weird. It's like, okay, boomer.
Uh,
That's exactly
so
what I was thinking the entire time with Soldier. Okay, boomer. You don't have
Oh, when he
PTSD.
says
You
what
have
Bill
shell shock.
Cosby's like America's man, so what's like you're like oh
Yeah.
boy,
Oh boy.
oh what a he makes stiff drinks. I he one bit of writing I really liked. I liked this performance. What's his name? Jensen Ackles.
Yes.
I've never really seen him in anything, so this obviously not this time we watched it, but this show was the first thing I'd actually watched anything of him in for
Yep.
any extended period of time.
Yeah.
And I know he was in Eric Kripke's other show, and that's obvious that people were excited about this.
That's
But I was like, oh,
supernatural, right?
yeah, and I was like, oh
Yeah.
shit, like I'm glad that it was good, that it that he was a interesting character. But the bit of writing I liked that they did was when he talks about how um all he ever wanted to do was impress his dad. And then he was like, and then I went and I saved the world. And the dad just said, yeah, but you cheated. You took drugs. So you
Mm.
suck. You're the biggest disappointment ever. And so you're like, okay, now you know what matters to him. And then when he meets up with Homelander, that's what he says. You're the biggest disappointment. Like I don't like you. I don't respect you. You're
Mhm.
so starved for attention. I'm like, I guess at least you could say that Soldier Boy's not starved for attention. But
He's definitely not.
no,
He's
it's just like,
created
oh,
this
this is
defense
like it's
thing
so
around himself.
embarrassing how much you want to be appreciated. Which I think people are always like, why doesn't he just do this? And it's like, I think multiple characters have said it, but like, Homelander still does need the approval. You can't kill off the people you're trying to get approval from.
Yeah, you can't do that.
So he is stuck in that prison of like, well, I still need Stan Edgar to like respect me. Like I
Yeah.
hate that he doesn't.
Mhm.
But I need it. I need him to see me as somebody to respect. And obviously, we talked about it last episode as well that I liked that it mattered to Homelander when he said you're a disappointment, because his whole thing was
Mhm.
I don't have the family, but now I've got my son and I've got my dad. We can do something together.
Mhm.
And just the wholesale rejection was just like, oh, no, I don't like that. But I
Mhm.
also appreciated that during that fight, so not the big hero gasm fight, but the last episode fight, he
Mhm.
prioritizes helping Ryan over anything else. And I'm
Mhm.
like, see, I didn't remember that when I said I think he genuinely loves his kid, but I was like, okay, I'm glad that I wasn't completely off on that. That
Mhm.
like he helps Butcher, and then you think they're gonna fight together when they walk, but it's like, no, Butcher's fighting, he's attending to his kid.
Mhm. Mhm.
And
Yeah,
I just
because
appreciated that writing of like what's really hurting these people that can punch each other all day is the emotional rejection from other people.
yeah, and I really like that meta commentary, and I'm sure this was done on purpose now because I'm seeing this over and over and over again in this show. But like how men are taught to be versus what they actually need and all that kind of stuff. Like everyone, regardless of gender, needs validation, right? And it's just like at the absolute extreme without that. It's insane what people will do. Like people will be so self-destructive or like and people pleasing and all that kind of, and I fall in that category that just to be like, hey, you did good and all that kind of stuff, right? The idea of this being generational trauma being carried forward over and over and over again, even though Soldier Boy was not, like a father in the traditional sense, but genetic material and all that
Mm-hmm.
kind of stuff, like inherited that generational trauma of being validated, being all this kind of stuff and all that. For Soldier Boy, he found a way because of him being the product of his time, being like, oh yeah, we're gonna build up walls, not let anyone in, but then the one person that can get in is just absolutely gonna devastate me in all those kind of ways, right? When he talks about his father and the approval that he seeks from him, and
Mm-hmm.
for Homelander, it's that in the modern day with social media, and you see that with people in social media that they'll do anything for likes, clicks, and attention and all that kind of stuff because they didn't get enough validation from the people that they truly genuinely care about. It's just it's such a good commentary on literally everything that's happening within masculinity. Because when you look at the female characters like Maeve, and when you look at Starlight and all that kind of stuff, Starlight goes through her growth journey because she's new and all that kind of stuff. But Maeve literally doesn't need validation from anyone. She just does the things that she does and has numbed herself through the process. But where Maeve gets to at the end of the season is just like, and what Ashley does to support that too. I'm just like, that's freaking awesome. But now knowing the alleged allegations, I'm like, I'm pretty sure that the actress just was like, "Hey, please write me off this show. Please write me
Yeah,
off this show."
I mean, I do think she still needs validation because what she's looking for is for her ex to just give her a pass and be like, "Oh, you're not bad." Like
Yeah,
that is what she's looking for.
yeah,
She's beating herself up, but she is looking for someone to be like, "Hey, take it easy on yourself.
yeah.
You're not that bad."
Hmm.
And I would say um that Homelander doesn't need the validation of social media because that's where he gets his fulfillment. He
Hmm.
gets his fulfillment because that validation from social media makes him important to the people he actually wants validation from.
Yep.
Um, which I
It's
think is different when you talk about people's relationship to social media. That is the actual validation they're getting. They're not like, oh, good, now my parent. I mean, maybe they are, but it seems like this show is being like, it could be anything. Like if it was, hey, you're really
Mhm.
good at making burgers, that's what he would be doing to get the attention. Like he's supposed to be a superhero, but clearly that's not what he cares about. He cares about what can I do that looks good and my numbers go up and then I have value to the people I actually care to have values with.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, because when he does that like rant at his birthday and all that kind of stuff. And by the way, forgot to mention this too, but very, very much love that they just Stormfront's out of the picture like entirely at this point
I
because I'm like,
mean,
good.
she's in the first episode.
Yeah, I know, but like it through like she's clearly done. Like we're not extending her. Like when I saw her in episode 1, I'm like, oh boy, are we gonna sit with this character the entire season? And like, nope, episode 2, she's done and all that kind of stuff. So I was very happy to see that because it would have been just so uncomfortable. But when he has his like breakdown and be like, no, I'm better than everyone. I'm tired of admitting that all this kind of stuff and how it resonates with like Ashley
The
says it,
stepdad.
white men
Hmm.
in the demographics charts and all those kind of thing. I'm like, that's saying something that people need to pay attention to. It's just not good. You're back in villains.
Well, that's
But
why I
yeah.
was like, I don't understand how you could get to season 4 before you realize that you're being called shitty.
Yeah, I don't get it. It's just like people move goalposts all the time. They try to just do mental gymnastics to be like, no, and here's my reasoning why. I mean, we certainly saw Starlight do it throughout this whole season, and love the fact that she's like, hey, I quit, and
Yeah.
still is using her platform and all that kind of stuff to try to do good through a different means at least. But it just goes to show you, yeah, like no matter what we can do, and Vought is a good example of this too. Like, oh, we got to PR this. We got to make this so that mentally in our own minds that we can validate ourselves, that we can be like, no, we're still good for whatever reason, and just keep shifting those goalposts and all that kind of stuff, as opposed to actually take accountability to be like, no, okay, I need to actually confront this, do the work, and all that kind of stuff, and to be actually the person that I think that I am.
Hmm.
It's wild stuff how well done this show is, really.
Yeah. I think they're, as I said, I don't think it's on the nose and surface level.
It's not. It's so not.
And I'm not trying to defend a product from Amazon Prime. I think a big part of this podcast is so that people can we can elucidate these things that are maybe hidden to, obviously hidden to some people whether they're willing it or not, and show that there is a benefit in exploring these ideas in a whatever you want to call it, like superhero setting. It gives a bit of removal for people to properly assess what's going on there and then see how that applies to their real life. So I appreciate when it's done this thoroughly. I shouldn't say this thoroughly because it makes it seem like it's a perfect thing, but a lot more effort is put into this than other versions of it.
Yeah, yeah, and it's like you pointed out too, and I don't think we actively say this enough, but like obviously I know when we do MCU stuff, it's like, hey, when we look at Disney itself as a whole as a company and what they support, not a fan of that. But when you do Quantumania and the message and what they're trying to explore there unsuccessfully, like you pointed it out, it's just like, no, these are good artistic things to actually take a look at. It's like, what's the
Hmm.
cost of staying silent? What's the cost of playing these games? And what's the cost of all that kind of stuff? These are evil companies because at the end of the day, from a capitalistic standpoint, you don't get to this level of money, of control, of all this kind of stuff without doing fundamentally messed up stuff. You cannot make that kind of money without exploiting people at the end of the
Hmm.
day. Right. So that's just the world we live in. It's just the reality. It doesn't mean like, hey, Disney's okay because we willfully
Yeah, I want to
review the
make
MCU.
yeah, for sure.
We're like, no, we're very much against Disney. It's just that how do we actually go forward with this podcast and actually critique the stuff that's
Well, I
going
think
without,
I mean
you know,
it's things that have a lot of eyes on them. So if we can
yes.
make clear what is beneficial from this, if everyone's looking at it, then
Mhm.
I think that's a good conversation to have.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Um, what else happens in this season? Yeah, you get to see the cartoons talk to Black Noir,
Black Noir. Yeah.
which is
I was a
interesting.
little confused about that. Is that a product of his own like PTSD
Yeah,
or is that like okay,
one
yeah,
hundred
yeah, yeah.
percent.
Sure. Okay.
Um,
Because I'm like, he didn't start taking like hallucinogenic drugs throughout the entire season, did he? Did I miss that? I'm like, okay, it is his PTSD. That's what I thought.
um, yeah, I don't remember. I'm sure we're missing big things because we haven't really. I guess what's his face? This is the season where like Frenchie. Yeah, so I guess to wrap up the Kimiko stuff is she doesn't have her powers. They're in hospital. Her and Frenchie are in the hospital together.
Mhm.
She kisses him while they're
Mhm.
watching a musical. And I thought, like, oh, that's a smart idea that she starts to sing there. Obviously, I know it's a dream sequence, but
Mhm.
like a musical, that kiss would lead to such big emotions that you can only express them through song, like in a musical. So they do that, but then it like gets to Frenchie being like, I gotta go, and I'm like, I hate when that happens to me. And then what I thought would happen happens, which is they get captured. Well, he gets
Mhm.
captured, and Kimiko's left to think, oh, should I not have kissed him? And
Mhm.
then she has to save him and truly gets messed up during the
Yeah.
process,
Yeah.
and makes the decision that it's like I would rather just have the powers. I'm not really into not having them now that I've had them.
Yeah.
So she gets Starlight to. I guess I should just call her Annie. Just what she's been trying to be called this season.
Mhm.
She gets Annie to give her Compound V again,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
Victoria Newman gives her daughter Compound V.
Yeah, that was wild to me. That was wild watching that scene.
And I was just like, I get. Again, I'm not saying this because I'm like she's the good guy. I'm just saying I understood that of like realistically, what am I going to do to say? I might as well give her the opportunity to be able to save herself.
Yeah. Yeah, because in a world of superheroes and messed up superheroes like Homelander and all that kind of stuff, like, yeah, you can't be ignorant to the idea of like, oh, well, I'm gonna make sure that my, it's a liability
What
on them.
it is what we were talking about is a parent that grew up with capitalism being like, well, now I got to force that on you because that's
Mhm.
just how the world works.
Yeah. Yep. It's true.
So yeah, let's yeah, her daughter's out there with powers now, and I don't remember like basically Maeve who we haven't directly talked about. Uh, she's helping Butcher get more Temp V. She
Mhm.
kind of starts the idea of it like, hey, this is just a 24-hour one, and you
Mhm.
learn that it would kill you after like 5 uses.
Yeah.
And him and Huey kind of go to town on that, and he doesn't tell Huey uh,
Yeah, I
what
hate that. I
the
hate
problems
that.
are with it. And
Yeah.
then when they're going to get one of the team members that sent Soldier Boy away, Butcher gets capped or gets it's not hypnotized, but that person can do a power where if you make eye contact with them, you'll be trapped in visions of yourself until you die,
Mhm.
and you get to see the backstory of his brother that everyone kept saying Huey is like Huey's like his little brother,
Mhm.
and I don't care because I don't care about Butcher.
Yeah,
I was
because
like,
at the
this
end of the
doesn't make
day,
it, like it doesn't make him act.
it
any
doesn't make it
different.
okay. It's just like, okay, so because Butcher has unprocessed trauma, he gets to project his bullshit onto everyone else. No, fuck off. That's terrible. That's terrible. It's just like, okay, we can understand where it comes from. Are we giving it a pass? No, absolutely not. I'm like, I'm sorry you have trauma. Please continue hurting everyone else around you. Like,
Yeah,
what the fuck is that?
and
No.
he hurts Ryan's feelings because Ryan
Mm,
is doing the work that the adult should be doing and trying to make Butcher feel better. He's like, "Hey, I sent you a video." Like we knew in season 2, he makes his own videos out of Legos, and he tries to send Butcher a video to cheer him up. And he's like, "It's helped me when I need to think about my mom." And Butcher's like, "Leave me alone," because he's dealing with the Temp V stuff, but also I think the other stuff is bubbling to the surface when he flat out says, "Maybe I don't want to look at you because you took away my wife." And
Yeah.
it's like, well, that's everyone's got their trigger. That was Ryan's. His whole thing is people are gonna think I'm a monster and that it's my fault.
Yeah.
And Becca even said, whatever last dying things were, you make sure he knows it's not his fault.
Yeah. It's
And
bullshit.
so Butcher takes that away from Ryan.
Yeah, like how much did he love Becca if he's just gonna go back on her dying wish, right? Like it's just like, dude, you're selfish. You're
I
just
have
a
to tell you
selfish
this.
bum.
I know it's gonna suck to hear this, but there's more stuff that's just gonna make you be like, this stuff with Becca sucks in season 4.
No, I have no doubt about that. I
You're
have
gonna
no
learn
doubt
some
about that.
stuff about Butcher where you're like, what the fuck is even the point of this?
Yeah, like I'm sure like, he's just a shitty person. Like shitty people do shitty things. So like for him to continue to be shitty and have a lower level to me, I'm like, no, that's not surprising at all. That's just heavily consistent. It would be really, really surprising. I'm like, oh, he did do well at some point, and that just went away. That'd be like, that's inconsistent with his character. But like for me to hear like, oh, there's more shitty stuff that happens with him and Becca, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. That's not surprising. I'm waiting
um
for it.
A Train is
Oh
a little
God, yeah.
further on his path to at least seeing the error of his ways, because I
Yeah.
basically he tries to do the capitalism thing of he's basically Blue Hawk is a cop for all intents and purposes. He's a superhero,
Yep.
but he's a cop, and he has the talking points of like, hey, if they're not so bad, how come they do this percent of the crime?
Right.
And basically, A Train's brother is like, yeah, this guy's been over policing our neighborhood,
Mhm.
and A Train has a conversation with him, but then he's like, oh, I know what I'll do. I'll take him to the rec center, and then that way he can say sorry to them, but also Vought can look good for filming this. And you're like,
Mhm.
yeah, see, this is you brought capitalism into this, and you ruined
Yeah.
everything. But
And
yeah, so
his brother paid the price. His
so Blue
brother
Hawk
paid
gets
such a
upset
big
that
price.
people aren't just grateful, and he says, "Soup lives matter, soup lives matter," and you're like,
Yeah.
"Oh God!" And he beats a bunch of people up and paralyzes A Train's brother permanently.
Yeah.
Why that's important is later on at Hero Gasm when A Train's there, Huey on Temp V is like, "Hey, you never apologized," and now he feels he's got the strength to have this conversation properly,
Mhm.
and you could just see A Train being like, "I'm genuinely sorry. I don't think you care though. Like, but I am sorry." And he's basically says like, "You saw someone you love get hurt, and it seems like that person could just do whatever they want, and now you're upset. I get it." And obviously, we know what he's talking about.
Mhm.
Huey's just like, "Hey, fuck you. I wanted a fight," so he punches him.
Yep.
But it's like, yeah, A Train's like, yeah, like, oh, I like that A Train's reaction was, like, wait, how did you do that? How did you do that? What the fuck is
Yeah.
happening?
Yeah. It's like, wait, you leveled the playing field? What the fuck's going on? I love the writing around A Train and like performative actions and how destructive they actually are. And how inherently selfish they are and all that kind of stuff. Like the entire arc of A Train, and we said this last episode, the A Train and the Deep kind of parallels are just, they're so good. They're so good. And just like him being like, okay, well, I'm gonna do this because he wants everyone to win. and being like, dude, you're so naive. Not
Yeah.
everyone can win in that kind of scenario. You can't do
Yeah.
that kind of shit. And I like how everyone's like is like just shitting all over his like rebrand and
Yeah,
like
it's
A Train
terrible.
goes to Africa. And I'm like, this is terrible. It's so objectively bad.
But then he runs for the first time in the season.
Yep.
He shouldn't have been doing it, and it does kill him. But he kills Blue, or yeah, I mean, I guess
Blue Hawk. Yeah, because he
he
drags him.
He does kill Blue Hawk because obviously you can't do a heart transfer if the person's not dead. So yeah,
Yep.
obviously. But the fucked up thing is that Vought puts Blue Hawk's heart in A Train. So now he's just got to live with that forever.
Fuck it. That's fucked. It's fucked.
And I like the way
honestly.
he played that. Like again, he doesn't say anything, but like play the way that Jesse T. Usher played, receiving that information that Blue Hawk's heart is now pumping in your chest. I was like, yeah, this is some good acting here.
This is some great acting by him. He's great in that role. Like he's I don't think he gets enough praise because
He's really
of course
good at
because of course his character is written to be a joke, but the way he performs it is
he's
so
really
good. He's such a good
From
actor.
season 1, I think he's been good, but yeah,
Yeah.
he's really good in this season. And then he has a conversation with the brother because the brother's like, "You killed him," and he's like, "Yeah." And he's the brother. I don't agree with the brother, but the brother's like, I wanted my kids to see him like in handcuffs. I'm like,
Mhm.
the over incarceration thing. Like, is that what you wanted? You wanted him to go to jail?
Mhm.
Is that gonna make you feel better about what happened?
Mhm.
And it's like, I would rather see, if you're not, and I'm not advocating for he needed to die, but if your thing is he shouldn't die, which is the right thing, then you would want to see him get the help he needs so he can stop being the way he is. Because like, jail is not like,
jail's
in reality. I'm talking about like,
Yeah.
and I'm sure the reality they live in as well. He knows jail's not going to fix him.
No, it's just gonna make jail worse for the people in jail.
It's just going to be bad. So like,
Yeah.
that part, and I'm not saying that's a mistake in the writing, but I was just like,
No.
I mean,
I don't think that's a mistake in the writing because at the end of the day, what the brother wanted is inherently selfish and all that kind of stuff. And you can't really make sense of that kind of thing, right? He's not wanting societal justice. He's like, wants him to stop policing this area for the safety of him, his community, all that kind of stuff. All makes sense. 100% makes sense. But at the end of the day, for him to carry out the justice, to be like, this is what I wanted, to be like, yeah, it's never gonna be the thing that's gonna be universally best for the world in that kind of scenario.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So then, yeah, that's very upsetting because then like the brother falls down and he's like, just get away from me. I don't even want your help to get up. I don't want any part of you right now. So A Train is separated from the only family he has.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's A Train stuff. And Queen Maeve, who's been helping, she gets her fight. She gets to fight Homelander, and I like that initially Homelander was like, not right now. I got to deal with my son, and she's like, no, we're having the fight, and he's like, not now. Like he's just annoyed. He's not even angry. He's just like, come on, we'll do this later. Stop this. Until she gets in some real hits, and he's like, okay, I guess we're fighting.
Yep.
And Maeve, rightfully so, is like, well, I can't really pursue this now because now the Soldier Boy thing is happening, and I need to get him out of this building. So she takes one for the team, but I'm assuming this was always part of the plan because then she gets to go off into the sunset, away from all of this. And as you mentioned already, Ashley deletes the footage that proves that she did that. But before that, Homelander was going to harvest her eggs, which was fucked. But I do like that she was like, this is still the second best day of my life because it shows that you're an idiot. Like, it shows you're a loser. So this is still good for me.
Yeah. I do like Ashley's arc in this whole season too, about like how she turns CEO and like she does the thing where she just emulates what Homelander does because that's what she thinks power is. And all that kind of stuff. It's
Mhm.
just like very excited to see where Ashley goes in season 4. I did not expect Ashley to be alive this long, to be perfectly honest. I thought like Homelander would have just threw a temper tantrum and like just knocked her, uh, just killed her out or something like that. But like
No, we
Ashley's
already
been a
established he's
very
not going to kill
good
people.
character.
He needs,
Yes,
he needs he doesn't
needs to
respect
control.
her, but
Yeah.
she respects him enough to like do what he wants. So he needs that
Mm,
around.
Is it respect or is it fear? It's definitely fear to me. It's not
It's what he
respect.
wants. It is,
Yeah.
I guess you're right that it's not respect that she has for him.
Right.
But I would argue she has she does have some form of it because she's mimicking what he does. So
Yep.
she respects how he goes about what he goes
Mhm.
about. She might not like that it's pointed at her, but she does respect how he operates because
And how effective it is. Yeah. She definitely does respect how effective it is, because for her to be like using the exact same dialogue
Mhm.
for like, hey, I'm gonna basically have sex with this guy and make him feel shitty and all that kind of stuff. I'm like, oh man, she's unhinged now. This is wild.
I'll be honest. I think she was unhinged before, but yeah.
She was, but like really, really unhinged. I will also say, like, when Homelander forces her to take off the wig, and I'm like, holy crap,
Mm-hmm.
that was a scene for sure. That was wild.
Oh, because he's embarrassing everyone in the room at that
Yep.
point.
Yep.
And that was her embarrassment.
Yeah. The fact that she's yanking out her hair to deal with the stress and all that kind of stuff. It's some good visual stuff. Some very, very good visual stuff.
And I think the last kind of thread there is that Ryan actively chooses to be with Homelander. And when they go out to present as the father-son duo they are, and someone throws a can at Ryan, Homelander just kills that person and has a moment of like, ooh, did I go too far? But the crowd is with him.
Yeah, the crowd's for it.
Enough of the crowd is with him. Obviously not
Yeah.
everyone, but enough
Yeah.
of the crowd is there with him, including the stepdad guy.
Yeah.
So he's the worst. And Ryan
He
kind of is
sucks.
like, oh, all right. And Homelander's like, oh, I can do what I want. Great.
Yeah.
So that's season 3.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and we forgot Soldier Boy gets put back on ice by the end of the
when
season.
Maeve takes him out,
Yep.
it gives them enough time to put him back on ice.
Yeah.
Yeah. There he is. Do you want to rate it?
Yeah, let's rate this thing.
I'm also going to give this a 9. This may seem like not an improvement, but season 1 and 2 were put together, so they evened out to a 9 for me. This is a straight up 9 on its own.
Yeah, I think this is a 9.5 to me. I think they're doubling down on a lot of the themes that I really, really like explored, and they're doing it in such a great, great, great way. And yeah, it's stronger than season 1 and 2. It got better for sure.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, what do I want to say here other than thank you very much for listening, everybody. Part of the That Shelf podcast network with other great shows like Bad Game Movies, Conjure Zoom Pod, Springfield Googleplex. So please go to thatshelf.com. You'll find those shows, our show, and more shows. And you can see older episodes of our show on a podcast platform of your choice or tdfeverything.com/spoiledrotten. And you can get in touch with us at TDSpoiled on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads. And email us spoiledpodcast@gmail.com. Perfect. All right. Oh, and don't forget to rate, review, subscribe, share with your friends, do all that great stuff wherever that is applicable. All right. We'll be back with season 4 next time you hear from us. Bye-bye.
Cheers.
This has been a TDF Everything production, brah.